right, we're going to go ahead and start the meeting. Thanks for your patience. I was trying to give folks an extra minute in case they had the location change not top of their mind, which was me. I went to the library and then came here.
I did too.
This is the Water Resources Advisory Committee meeting for March 6, 2019. And let's go ahead and have a quorum check. If you are a voting member today, please raise your hand. Yep. 15, we have quorum. Thank you so much. And then let's go ahead and do introductions. I'm Andy Pease, City of San Luis Obispo City Council.
I'm Christine Mulholland, Environmental at Large alternate, acting today for Sue Luft, who's not here.
Thank you.
I'm Steph Wald. I'm Environmental at Large alternate, and I'm with Central Coast Sound Enhancement, which is changing its name to Cooplands.
As the City of Grover Beach.
Tim Walters, Development at Large. Steve Snowchin, Standard San Luis Water District.
Mike Norman, staff with the City of San Luis Obispo.
Jason Yeager, Ag at Large.
Charles Bourbeau, Atascadero City Council.
Good afternoon, Rick Merchant, San Luis Obispo County Farm Bureau.
James Green, San Luis Obispo County Farm Bureau.
Barry Braden, farmer in Los Osos Valley.
Chuck Cicino, Los Osos Community Services District. Bonnie Whitman, Golden State Water.
Tom Moore, RCD.
Bill Garfinkel, District 2.
Sarah Grable, Public Works, County Public Works.
Brendan Clark, County Public Works staff.
Craig Armstrong, Como CSD.
Sean Reed, Camp San Luis Obispo.
Eric Greening, Environmental unalternate.
David Chippett, Environmental at Large.
Linda Chipping, Coastal San Luis RCD.
Shirley Gibson, Director at Oceana CSD.
And Ray Dienzo, County Public Works.
Great. Thank you all for being here. Heads up, looking down the agenda, just want to make sure those folks are aware of item 8. We are now rotating through each meeting, having groups of folks be able to give an update about water issues that are relevant to your group, and this month is the at-large members, so our ag development and environmental groups will each get a few minutes to share with us what's going on. So you have the rest of the agenda to figure out what you'd like to say. All right, and assuming no changes to the agenda, any comments or changes for the meeting minutes from February 6th? Seeing none, I'll entertain an,
I would like to ask again, starting on number 2, it says member C. Mulholland, and it's neither here nor there how you write that, but throughout the minutes my name comes up again as member, and I'm acting member or alternate or whatever. I'm not a full member yet, so I wonder if that might be better to correct.
and were you,
Throughout the minutes, there's again on item 2, my name shows up, and again on item 6, my name, and then on 7, my name shows up.
and were you, that day was
I
Sue
was
here, or
acting
you
and
were-
voting for Sue Luft, but I was still an alternate, so I don't know if that needs to be stated in the minutes or not.
Yes, we'll correct it. I apologize.
That's all right with me,
Jumped
I
the
just
gun a
wanted to
little.
bring it up in case the record should be more.
You just
more-
philosophically have you so folded in, Christine. All right. Any other comments or corrections on the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Bill, thank you.
Motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Great, thank you.
Second.
And second, we already had,
had-
was that Tom? Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'll
And
call.
we do a roll call on this one, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, Dennis Laux. Bill Garfinkel.
Yes.
Linda Seifert or Natalie Reisner.
Jim Gehring. Jason Yeager.
Yes.
Tim Walters.
Yes.
Christine Mulholland.
Yes.
Eric Greening.
Yes.
David Chipping.
Yes.
Linda Chipping.
Yes.
Tom Mora.
Yes.
Okay. John Reed.
Yes.
George Kendall. Anthony Lindstrom.
Yes.
Steve Sinton.
Abstain.
Lee Nesbitt or Hillary Graves. Lan George. Charles Bourbeau.
Abstain.
Marcia Guthrie. Okay, Andy Peace.
Yes.
Chuck Cecina.
Yes.
Craig Armstrong.
Yes.
Shirley Gibson.
Yes.
And Charles Grace, not here, Tina Meyer. But motion carries.
Thank you. All right, the next item is the consideration of submitting the WRAC 2018 annual report to the County Board of Supervisors. That report has, is in your packet. Ray is kind enough to put together the summary of meetings, and then I draft the cover letter for that one. Any comments? Christine?
Yes, I think it's a good piece of work to forward to the Board of Supervisors. I do have a little granny grammar issue on the last large paragraph of the letter. The second line, the committee is now composed of 37 members representing a broad spectrum of agencies. After committee needs no comment, comma, after members needs no comma. And I suggest between agencies, it should be and groups, not or.
I agree with all of those. All right, any other comments or questions on this?
Move approval as amended.
Second.
Thank you. So that was a motion, I think that was Steve, second by Christine.
Just a question.
Sure.
Is
Eric.
this going to be conveyed to them as a consent item that the public can see?
Ray, how do we
No,
usually do that?
typically no. But we could, I could request this, same as I requested the water conservation
Yes.
measures, so.
I think it makes a difference because we are doing the public's business in communicating with the supervisors, and for the same reasons that it was good for the public to see. I hope they will see the water conservation recommendations. I think it would be good to, I think it's just generally good in terms of open government that when government officials are especially collectively communicated with, it be done in public.
I agree.
Good point. Thank you.
But I do think this is excellent, and I intend to support it.
Great, thank you. It's also interesting to, that these always include the attendance from all the meetings, so that's good public record as well. All right, so we have a motion for approval. Any other comments? Voice or?
Yeah, we can do voice.
And we can go ahead and do a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. Abstentions? Terrific, motion carries. All right, now it is time for the WRAC elections for chairperson and vice chairperson. I'm currently serving as chair, and Linda Seifert is our vice chair. Linda's not here, although I have she indicated offline that she would be able to do it again if nominated. So the process will be to nominate for the chair, and vote, and then we'll nominate for vice chair and vote, and we'll do roll call vote both times. Nominations, yes, Eric?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Are you willing to do another year?
I will do, yes, I accept the nomination to do one more year.
I thereby so nominate.
Thank you. Any other nominations for chair?
Move the nominations be closed.
All right, nominations are closed. I can call for that, and we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote for Andy Pease to serve as chair.
Did anyone walk in that wasn't in the original roll call? Okay. Okay, Bill Garfinkel,
Yes.
Jason Yeager,
Yes.
Tim Walters,
Yes.
Christine Mulholland,
Yes, and thank you, Andy.
You're welcome.
Eric Greening,
Yes.
David Chipping,
Yes.
Linda Chipping,
Yes.
Tom Moore,
Yes.
John Reed,
Yes.
Anthony Lindstrom,
Yes.
Steve Sinton,
Yes.
Charles Burbeau,
Yes.
Andy Pease,
Yes.
Chuck Sesenia,
Yes.
Craig Armstrong,
Yes.
Shirley Gibson.
Yes.
Is there any other member or member alternate that, in place of the member that just walked in? Yes.
James Green.
James Green. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we not
Great.
have-
The motion carries.
Great, thank you. All right, now nominations for vice chair.
And you said Linda's willing to do it?
Yes,
I nominate Linda.
so Linda Seifert
Yes.
nominated for vice chair.
I'll second.
Great, any other nominations? Anyone else interested in this? All right, next year we'll get a whole fresh crop. You want to do roll call
Yeah,
again?
let's do roll call again. Bill Garfinkel,
Yes.
Jason Yeager,
Yes.
Tim Walters,
Yes.
Christine Mulholland,
Yes.
Eric Greening,
Yes.
David Chipping,
Yes.
Linda Chipping,
Yes.
Tom Mora,
Yes.
John Reed,
Yes.
James Green,
Yes.
Anthony Lindstrom,
Yes.
Steve Sinton,
Yes.
Charles Burbeau,
Yes.
Andy Pease,
Yes,
Chuck Sesenia,
Yes.
Craig Armstrong,
Yes.
Shirley Gibson.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
excellent. Well, thank you all, and look forward to the next year. Yes, Linda?
Thank you very much for the work that you've done in the past year, and I look forward to your upcoming year.
Great, thank you so much. Me too. I've really enjoyed this work, and I've enjoyed getting to know the individuals and feeling like the vision forward. Our work becomes ever more critical, and I'm grateful for your participation and look forward to the next year. All right. Let's go on to ongoing updates. I'll go through each one, and if you have some comments, just raise your hand and let me know. Rain and reservoir report. Eric.
Excellent news.
Uh-huh.
We can be happy this time. One question, since we're probably going to be taking on comments on the tunnel to San Antonio Dam, to the San Antonio Reservoir, would it make sense to start including their levels in our reports? I know it's not a county reservoir, we'd be getting it from Monterey County, but I think we get the Nacimiento data from them anyway, so just a thought.
We can include that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, any objections to including San Antonio since it has some relevancy in the future? Great, okay, thanks.
I'm curious as to why they show a couple of areas like Whale Rock reservoirs having only like 50% of average when everybody else is over or like at 90%. Was there like a malfunctioning sensor? I think there's a footnote, but I can't read it with my eyes.
Where are you looking?
Lopez.
Lopez was one, and so was Whale Rock, but there's asterisks.
Because under the reservoir update in the second graph, it shows Whale Rock at 81%.
Oh, okay, but it shows Whale Rock in the north coast as a rain station area, just below Cambria.
Right, I see that.
You mean their percentage of normal?
Yeah.
Whale Rock, 53% of
Does seem
total
normal.
average. I think they're just slow in reporting.
Yeah, because it does not include February, so it's only through January.
Oh, okay, and then they also
It
the
says
slow reservoir.
226,
Michael, do you have any?
And Ray, I'm actually not, we don't generally report on our website the percent of average, just the percent of capacity full, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is percent of capacity. The reservoir updates are all percent of capacity.
So we should be, I think it was 81 when the report was published, 84 this morning. The Whale Rock.
And the percent of total average is actually percentage of the total for a normal, complete rainy season, which
Yes.
makes this very good news.
Excellent.
Some of us are already ahead of a total season. And others are probably going to be by the time it concludes.
It's a very happy year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was just concerned about those two spots, Reservoir Canyon and Whale Rock Reservoir seemed a little low compared to the others.
Right, smaller catchment areas for those, for Whale Rock, for sure.
And
All right.
Crucial isn't intended to store, it's intended to control floods, as I understand it, so that's not a concern.
Great. Okay. Any other comments on rain and reservoir report? All right, groundwater basin management efforts. Any questions or comments? Integrated regional water management. Do we even have anything on that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Come on up. Thanks.
Hello, Brendan Clark again, county staff. I wanted to provide an additional update to what's written in here on page 18. So at the time of this writing, the call for projects for the upcoming grant was not open here locally, but it opened yesterday. So at slopecountywater.org/RWM, you can see the call for projects information. It will be open most of the month, and the RWMG will be reviewing all the projects submitted in April, and hope to have something in front of you at your May meeting to see what the application will include, what projects and how much funding. So total funding for our area in this round is about $3 million, so that'll be split, I'm assuming, among a number of projects from the RWMG membership. So a few RAC members here are on the team who are going to be help selecting that. I see Shirley here. I'll see you after. And then Michael as well is on that team. So keep an eye out for that. If you have any more questions, you can reach out to me. I'll be here at the end of the meeting. Or again, also slopecountywater.org/RWM.
Great. Thanks, Brandon. Any questions on that? Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, stormwater resource plan.
Sarah Crable with the County Public Works Department. So since this update included in this packet, we have submitted the final stormwater resource plan to the state board, and it is currently under review. So it was submitted on February 28th. We're expecting, if all goes well, concurrence in May 2019, and Prop 1 funding round 2 implementation grant is expected to come open late summer, early fall 2019. So those projects that everyone helped to submit are potentially eligible if they, fill out a grant application. But if you have any questions, please check out our website. And you can also contact me at any point. Yes, Christine?
On page 19, the second paragraph, it says the PMT has compiled a project list, and then it goes on to TAC leads. I'm a little I don't know that the acronym, PMT.
That is the project management team. Sorry for not defining that.
And the
TAC
TAC
is Technical Advisory Committee.
Okay, thank you. I read it 3 times looking for, did I miss what that was?
And
Okay,
so
thank you.
the PMT was comprised of county, city, and then our consultant team. And then the Technical Advisory Committee had a representative for these 9 different areas that we split up the county based off of watersheds, and those areas contributed information on what the project needs. So they contacted the agencies or the groups within their TAC area and worked with them to get the information to the project management team.
Thank you.
Yes.
And what is the review and comment period?
So the public review for the draft was September, so that has closed. It was September 10th to October 10th. It is currently under review by the State Water Resources Control Board, and we do not know, so we're expecting them to come back with some comments. We had already submitted it. We addressed those comments, and so now this is the final that we've submitted to them, and hoping for concurrence from them by May. Yes.
There's a big issue down there with the drying of all the dune lakes. If you have a situation with excess water in the creeks, is there any part of the discussion that says that some of that water might be used to recharge the dune lakes complex?
And I think, are you saying lagoon or ragoon?
The dune lakes, the ones that are north of Black Lake, that used to be filled with water. The act drawdown has actually drawn all those lakes down. So
is it like Oso-Flocka?
No.
Like pipeline and some of the lakes.
Yeah, but they're at the south end of the agricultural plain where the dunes come in. There are a whole bunch of lakes down there. They contain endangered plants and all sorts of other things. And the water table's been drawn down, and basically it's a sort of lost habitat. The Fish and Wildlife Service has just written a paper on how the heck can we get water back in the dune lakes. And I just wondered whether this is obviously an opportunity when you're dealing with excess water of maybe at least considering the economics of putting water back in the lakes.
Right, so several things with that. I think that's a great idea, and it's something that with the Stormwater Resource Plan, projects have to have a project proponent, which is either an agency within a county or I don't know what it's called, like a nonprofit, to 1C3. So the project management team did not come up with their own projects. So a project like this would need a project proponent that is going to be going through that process of submitting information to us. But you're correct in that this is a good project for this type of plan. So with this funding, they want to see that these projects meet multiple benefits. So there's 5 benefits that they've identified. And sorry if I'm repeating information you guys have already heard, but it's, it's a stormwater plan, so one of those benefits is flood management. They'd also like to see an environmental component, a community-based component, a water supply component, and then a water quality component. So you have to have at least a few of those components when you're presenting this project to this plan. So that's something that, if you have a project and you have a project proponent, you can contact us. And while this plan is just trying to be finalized and go through concurrence, the project list is closed, but it will eventually be a plan that is under the IRWM plan and overseen by the RWMG. So at that point, additional projects will, the structure isn't set in place yet, but additional projects will have the opportunity to get on our stormwater resource plan project list. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Bill?
Just a question or a comment. On the basin update, you do the Los Osos fringe area, but you dropped the Los Osos basin. Is there a reason for that?
Is there,
On page 16.
Can you say your question again?
The fringe area is listed, but the Los Osos basin is not listed.
Oh, it does have separate.
well, it's the first one on the, it's this one here, it's on the first block. Los Osos Basin Fringe Area.
Are there two?
Does that include the Los Osos Basin?
Oh, is that your question,
That's the
Bill?
question,
Yeah, are
yeah.
there two separate items?
No, it doesn't include the Los Osos. Like what the BMC, yeah, the BMC, I think we can see.
Okay. Let's see, going on to E, 5E, various county water programs, policies, and ordinances. Eric?
Yes, we felt as if we were talking to a wall for a long time relative to fractured rock, but lo and behold, the Board of Supervisors actually had an item to discuss and kind of give very tentative policy direction on it, although the direction is to staff to come back with. Their primary discussion was looking at ordinances in other counties, some of them fractured rock specific, some of them not. And it isn't quite clear to me exactly what staff felt they had direction to come back with. But certainly the Tehama County ordinances and how that might be applied to this county might be brought back. I am hoping that elements of the Napa County ordinances, especially how defensible findings were made of what was called a water deficient area under their law. Anyway, any of us can look at the staff report for the previous supervisors meeting, see what material they got, listen to the tape of the meeting, and I am hoping that staff will come to us to sort of vet some ideas about what they might want to bring back to the board. In the upcoming board meeting on next Tuesday the 12th, in the morning there will be the state legislative platform, and in the afternoon there will be the RMS summary findings, and then this big housing package that includes some changes to the county CEQA guidelines. The changes that are proposed by staff, essentially, they don't apply just to housing projects, but to all projects. And they would give the applicants some degree of say over the hiring of EIR consultants who have always in the past been impartial, and then more sort of conversational opportunities with the consultants during the process that it isn't clear would be on the public record. And obviously I've always understood CEQA to be a disclosure process where things do need to be on the public record, so we may want to clarify that. It's also possible that even though staff isn't recommending it, the supervisors would be interested in recommendations from other groups like the CEQA Working Group, and who knows where the conversation will go. But I don't think under the Brown Act they could adopt anything that isn't in that particular written staff report. But I think we need to watch them closely because this goes well beyond housing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other thoughts on on that agenda item. I think that was kind of triggered by concerns from Adelaida area.
Oh, the one on the fractured rock?
Yeah, on the
yes.
fractured rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we were to follow the Napa County model, it would be of great interest to know how, what, based on what, given that generally there simply is not a budget to study pocket by pocket by pocket a fractured rock area. And so based on what sorts of findings does a water deficient area with the regulations that attend it get defensively declared? And I think that would be of great interest, but there are a lot of things of interest in this whole ball of wax.
Right. Right. Well, and it makes sense to kind of keep tabs on what recommendations come from staff and in terms of the studying that fractured rock, since that was part of our concerns as the water conservation area. So depending on what, maybe you can just check in to see if they have some information that they want to share or feedback they want to get from us.
And I would
Christine?
hope that study would also include developments that have in the past been approved with water coming from fractured rock areas and their history. For instance, up Valley Vista Road, just west of San Luis Obispo City in the county, that Valley Vista development is all, and Emerald Hills is all on fractured rock up there. And during, not this drought, but the drought before, they were running out of water out there. The residential lots were running out of water. So if we can keep the history and understand where the failures are or have been, I think it'd be an important part of the conversation.
Good. I thought I'd also just mention briefly that last night at City Council we had an update for Cal Poly for their master plan in order to grow and put another 10,000 students on campus. That they're looking for water. They currently get from Whale Rock and some groundwater, and so there's been a conversation in order to support their master plan that they have to, for the EIR, they have to have some secure water sources. So they looked at maybe 30 different short-term and long-term options. One of their best options actually is to do an on-site water treatment plant once they have all that housing on campus, and then that recycled water can support their ag operations, which is 300 something acre feet a year, and then they're going to need I can't remember, 1,000 acre feet of potable water to be able to support the residents. And so there's maybe some swap and maybe some short-term delivery of raw water from Whale Rock from the city, or they might try to do trades for procuring some nacimiento water, et cetera. So interesting conversation to try to make sure that they can grow on campus and keep with our LAFCO constraints. Yes, Eric?
Did you get any insights on the likely timing of the public release of the recirculated draft environmental impact report on the master plan?
I did not. November?
November.
Thanks, Tim.
So that means December.
Well, or whatever, yeah.
But that was certainly one of the
their
key
previous draft
barricades.
Failed, essentially they're doing over because the previous draft only identified 5 years of water for a 20-year plan. And so I'm glad to know that they are actually working on what was one of the major flaws. There were other flaws that hopefully they're also working on.
Yes, I think they are. It's been a very
Anyone who wants
collaborative
to know what those
effort.
are, the city's website, through the city's website, you can get to the extensive letter written by Whitney McDonald on behalf of the city, commenting on that EIR.
Yeah, that's good. All right, let's see. And then the final one, open reporting on water conservation opportunities and information. Anybody have anything for that item? Okay, terrific, thank you. Okay, so next item is to consider approving Christine Mulholland as environmental at-large member, and then other applications as they are submitted. So we'll take that one at a time. And Ray, can you introduce this item?
Yes, so Christine Mulholland is applying for the environmental member position that Sue Luft has vacated. So, once approved by the RAC committee here, this now would go before the Board of Supervisors. I have not received any other applications for this position, so Christine is the only applicant we're considering today.
Move we recommend her appointment.
Okay, we have a motion
I will
to
second.
recommend and a second by Eric. Any further any discussion on this item? Voice vote is fine. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right.
Come on, somebody.
Thrilled to have you. Thank you,
And we
Christine.
are very grateful. This seat represents the environment, and Christine has always represented the environment with both heart and mind very effectively.
Indeed. And then Ray, can you remind us of other open positions at this point? So now we need an alternate.
So now once this is officially approved by the board, then it'll be, the alternate will now be vacant. There's also an environmental at large vacant under Eric Greening. There is, and then there's also an ag at large alternate vacancy. Both of them, both ag at large. The members are Kurt Bollinger and Jason Yeager, and their alternates under them are vacant.
Okay.
And that's it as far as at large.
Right.
Where is recruiting taking place? How is word getting out at this point?
Well, I send a notice twice to some of the environmental groups. I have an email list of people that I send it to, and it's actually in our WRAC documents that I sent that, and that's available on the website of all the ones that I send it to, and I also send it out to the Board of Supervisors as well,
Thank
and
you.
if they have any recommendations.
So please, keep an
We'll
eye
all
out,
beat the bushes.
encourage folks to attend, especially if you are the at-large member, if you can help identify your alternate so that you have that kind of coordination. I think that's helpful. So that's ongoing, open. It's not like that cuts off. So let's try to get those filled. Great, thank you. Congratulations, Christine. All right, and item 7, consider forming a subcommittee to review the WRAC bylaws. And Ray, if I could introduce that one too.
So according to our bylaws, we have to review the bylaws every couple of years. We consider reviewing the bylaws every couple of years. And since the last time the bylaws were approved, Sigma got up and going, some GSAs were starting to form, and due to some of those groups that have formed, the role of WRAC has somewhat evolved a little bit in that a lot of decisions relating to groundwater, at least, are being done at a local basin, even sub-basin level. So consider, like, if we want to form a subcommittee to look at these again. Doesn't have to, if the group here feels that it's good the way it is, that's fine, but it's something that we have to consider every couple of years.
So it's probably a one meeting kind of
Yeah.
effort within that group. Eric?
I don't see a problem with the bylaws as they are, but one question that I think they kind of leave vague. We are supposedly to advise the Flood Control and Water Conservation District. And I know a question that's likely to come up if we take on review of the draft DIR on the tunnel between Nacimiento and San Antonio is, this is a project carried on with a different lead agency than our county. And so that raises the protocol question. can the RAC submit comments to someone other than the county as a lead agency, or should can the RAC only submit comments to our county recommending that the county incorporate them in their comments as a responsible agency? Do you know if that is clear at this time? Is it something that would need to be made clear?
Well, well, it seems clear to me though that comments need to be the nature of advising the board of supervisors. And any other comments that are submitted to any place other than the board of supervisors, really, it's not out of that's out of the purview of the RAC.
So we can do it individually, but
Yes.
not as the RAC. But we could request that the board incorporate our comments into their comments and see what they do with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I think that'd be appropriate to keep that language. Yes, Christine?
I'm of a mind that our bylaws are fine right now. We need a single committee meeting. I would volunteer, but I personally think the bylaws are okay.
Okay.
And don't need any review at this time.
The bylaws also state too that the board can also call for a review of the bylaws. It doesn't have to be every couple of years,
So
it doesn't, what I'm saying is, if we decide not to do a subcommittee to review it, doesn't mean that we can't review it a month from now.
It's a concern. All right, Linda?
I would just say that in listening to this, because I feel like I don't really have a horse in the race, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that we just, honor the comments that have been made here, that the bylaws seem to be in order at the moment, and that we can review them at any time in the future, should something arise.
Tim?
Yeah, the bylaws state that we should look at it every other year, right, every couple of years. Why didn't we include it as part of the packet? I mean, just the bylaws themselves, and just, like, you could put it on next month and just have it in there, and we'd have time to review it prior to the meeting, and if there's any comments, great. If
So,
there's not,
yeah,
rather than do a subcommittee.
I tend to, I'm happy to be a part of, even if it's an hour of an ad hoc to kind of review it, then we can bring it back next month, include the next meeting, include the bylaws, and if we have no changes, we have no changes. But it seems having an intentional review, albeit brief, is probably a good practice. So I'd be happy to do it.
I'm going to defer to Tim's comment. I think he's absolutely correct. It says the RAC shall review the bylaws, but it doesn't say we have to have a committee or recommendations. I think that what Tim has just suggested is perfectly excellent. Put the bylaws in next month's agenda so that everyone reads them if they don't have copies of them at home or whatever. Write it, everybody look at it, we come in here at our next meeting and say, all right, we review, and if we have any problems with it, then we can say so. But if most of us are comfortable, I think that's the better way than even bother with a committee at this point.
All
There
right.
doesn't seem to be a need for a committee.
All right, so if we bring it in the next time, everybody reviews it. If there is questions, discussion, we can establish an ad hoc at that time, or just
Yeah.
resolve it in the
Yeah.
moment.
I agree.
I see head nodding, general consensus. Does that work for you? Okay, terrific, thank you.
So the direction that I'll agendize it next month, but I'll actually include the
The
bylaws.
bylaws, yes, please.
I'm a little fuzzy on one thing, and that is how autonomous are GSAs, and how much can the county interfere with the GSA's management, and in that case, how much is RAC tied in to the county through that chain? For example, if one, I can't give an example, but it would seem to me that the GSA would be responsible essentially to the state, right? And if something is seen by others as not quite right, is there a relationship through RAC and the county back to the GSAs? I'm a little unclear on that.
So I guess what I'm gonna say is, it sounds like that's a bylaws discussion, right? That's specific to what would be in the bylaws that we could talk about next month when we've all had a chance to be, reading it. Cause what I see here, is on the agenda is to consider forming a subcommittee to review, but we're not actually doing the review right now, that's not agendized. So I just wanna make sure we don't stray from what's on the agenda. Is that all right, David?
I was just giving an example of the
Things
kind
to
of thing
look
that
for.
It wouldn't be in the bylaws, it's a whole new creature.
Uh-huh,
That's the thing, you know?
Yeah, interesting.
I think
Eric?
presently, the county being a participant in most of the Sigma governing bodies, our chain of advice is through the county's participation in those bodies. And that is already an established link, and certainly in the Paso Robles Basin, the county actually has majority control of that governing agency, the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, although it takes a 2/3 vote to take an action, so the county's 60%. It doesn't by itself govern. But I guess the question is, do we want the county, or do we want ourselves to have some role that goes beyond informing the county's participation in these groundwater sustainability agencies? Because if so, I think we would need to rewrite the bylaws to make that happen.
Okay, thank you. All right, Linda.
Just a reminder that the bylaws are available on SnoqualCountyWater.org. Up in the upper left-hand corner, in a little box, and it says bylaws.
Thank you. Always available for us. Okay, great. So then moving on to item 8. This is kind of our new effort about updates from our members, and today is updates from at-large members on water issues relevant to their group or agency. And so, everybody gets to get up and say something, but I'll allow people to self-identify who wants to go first, but we'll make sure looks like there's 6 of us.
I'll go.
Yeah, all
I'll
right,
go
Tim,
first.
can you
Do
come
I
up?
have to stand up?
Yeah, you do. Yep.
Tim Walters, Development at Large. I'm also a principal over at RM Design Group. I guess the only update I have, water related, would be that. and
Tim,
it's a
can
little-
you come up so everybody can see you? Thank you.
It's a little tangential, but there is a housing summit that's coming up on March 22nd at Grace Church. It is it is all housing issues. I think Slow Chamber is one of the sponsors, EVC. Not sure, it may be sold out, so it's, sorry about that, but one of the panels is going to include the Director of Urban Water Sustainability from Stanford, so it should be interesting and informative.
When is that?
March 22nd at Grace Church.
The church by Mitchell Park.
Yeah, where they have the slow morning thing for the chamber. Actually, you guys probably have a table, so you get in on that. But yeah, it should be great. It's the second year, and it should be great. That's all I got.
Thank you. Christine.
Okay, well, I don't have any particular group. I talk to a lot of people, including environmentalists. And what I'm hearing over and over is that this rain is so fabulous, it's beautiful, it's so wonderful. But the average person is going to say, oh, well, the drought's over, and never mind, and people are going to forget about conserving and cutting back. And what a lot of us are seeing in our town, anywhere here in SLO, is, well, build, build, build. And yet there was a wonderful article you might have caught about Seattle just recently, and how the greenest city in the country isn't so green as they start counting their CO2 levels and their plans to have it cut back, and it's not being cut back, it is growing. The CO2 levels are growing no matter what the green initiatives they've been putting forward in Seattle. And the reason is growth. So I'm sorry, from what I'm hearing from people I'm talking to, we're not buying into the idea that we can just keep growing and growing and growing and there's going to be enough water for everyone, especially when the next drought comes along.
Right.
I agree. Any seeming deliverance from chronic drought is temporary. It's worth celebrating, like anything temporary is worth celebrating. Anyway, there is a process going on, and actually you raised a very good point this morning. Normally, WRAC members don't get involved in transportation issues, but the Council of Governments has a major update in progress of its regional transportation plan / sustainable communities strategy. And there are two ways that this intersects interests in water. One relates to growth, because the sustainable communities strategy piece of it is related to how much growth will be accommodated in what form and where, how much spread out, how much bunched together, etc. And so some assumptions are being built into it that are supposed to coordinate with the regional housing needs assessment done by the State Department of whatever it is. In any event, so the regional transportation plan itself is open for comment and needs comments on that aspect of it from the standpoint of resource availability. And I'm soon going to give you the timeline and address to comment. The other is there is an EIR on the regional transportation plan / sustainable communities strategy, and it has identified 4 class 1 impacts that that are claimed not to be fully mitigable. One of which has to do with water quality relative to what comes off the pavement, including the pavement that would be added and the traffic that would be accommodated on that pavement that would be added as part of the plan. And, you know, we've had flushing for so long that we've kind of forgotten how awful first flush is. But all pavement collects things we don't want in the creeks and in the ocean. And those creeks and the ocean get a big dose of it when it rains after not having rained for a long time. It's ground up tires, it's oil that's stripped from tank cases. There are ways of collecting and filtering those nasty things. And so we may be interested in commenting on whether we're going to simply throw up our hands and say, well, it's beyond this class 1, find overriding considerations we need to get around, or whether we will intensify our efforts to contain that problem. In any event, anyone who wants to visit those documents and make comments on them, go to the website of the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments, and those documents are available. Anyone who wants to make a comment on the regional transportation plan needs to get that comment in to R T P @slowcog.org by April 22nd. I think the original deadline was April 8th, but I was told they had extended it to the 22nd to match the EIR date. You heard that too, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And then to make comments on the EIR, which must be responded to in the final, you write the E, I, R @slowcog.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, folks. it says issues are relevant to their group or agency, you know, and environment, group, agency, that's a whole shitbang, isn't it, really? This is the problem that I face, actually, as a geologist and as a conservationist working with native plants and things like that, I am interested in what goes on with the water, like Steph and her salmon and things like that. We do have all the pertinent things of nature to think about, and nature basically has no rights. There is no fundamental right that puts water in a stream, only a regulation given by Fish and Game on a minimum allowable flow and things like that. And we're rapidly reaching the point, which we saw in the drought, that we've basically reached our limits. And this is a real problem because we've got conflicting social and physical needs here. We have to be prepared for extensive drought. Climate warming, I've been messing around with that with some computer programs and national groups, indicate that we're going to get very, very highly sustained droughts. That we've seen, a 5-year drought and basically ran out of resources. We can expect 20-year droughts with occasionally rainy years in between. We've got this issue of increasing population and people with no homes and things like that. And I can't find a way of reconciling the need for the human beings with the resources to support them. And it's a real problem. That may not be a simple answer. Very, very clearly, we have to think of commodities, and water especially, in a much more treasured way. We have to think about paying way more for it. We are going to have to think about desal. If Cal Poly is building new residences and it cannot find water, then maybe it's going to have to pay umpteen zillion dollars an acre feet and and get a hunk of the PG&E desalinization that's being decommissioned at Diablo Canyon or something like that. There is not enough water around, basically on a year-to-year basis, to sustain the wildlife and everything else if we have droughts. Not enough, in fact, to sustain us. So a lot of the things I've seen, of course, like, for example, the Letitia thing that we went through, that was a fractured aquifer issue. That was a situation where we could have stranded people in a subdivision that was going to be running out of water, perhaps, because they were in a fractured aquifer. Now, that's an environmental issue. It really is an environmental issue. And it was a question of ag versus people there. Would ag have a right to continue watering the vineyards while cutting off the management of the water for the subdivision, which is one of the things that we were looking at there, if you remember. So this is the sort of situation we are in. We're running up against economics on one hand, against the actual amount of water we have. We keep thinking we can have cheap water. We can't. And how we manage that, I don't know. That's enough for me. I'm sorry. Blowing out a bit. I can see all those people going to sleep in the back row.
No, that was great. Thank you.
We're on the edge of
Appreciate
our
it.
chair. Some of us find climate change edge of the seat.
Yeah, it is scary.
It's not sluggish.
But also for the trees and the fish and
Tree mortality. We have a temporary pause in the tree mortality, but remember how fast they were dying before we got that one wet year, and now we have this one just in time to keep more from dying for a little while.
Thank you. Jason, still back there? Is Jason Yeager still back there? He has to slip out. He gets a pass anyway because he did that whole presentation. I think that's everybody then. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Alternates allowed.
I wasn't sure. I just wanted to catch you up briefly on a project that Central Coast Sound Enhancement started a few years ago. It was funded through the Wildlife Conservation Board, and it was to measure base flows countywide. And this was a follow-on to work that was done through RWM in terms of industry flow study countywide, that Stillwater Sciences did. And our work with the base flow monitoring was to basically fill a data gap that was ongoing, that grew out of the master water planning process that the county did. And that data gap was environmental water demand. And so a base flow monitoring program begins to get at that data gap, that environmental water demand. And so our base flow monitoring will be up. We're finishing that up this summer, so I hope to be able to present to you all what the results are. And we're basically using that information to inform a number of things moving forward in terms of supporting stream flow, but it's not just supporting stream flow, and I hope it's of interest to everyone, because while we're most interested, because that's the mission of the organization in terms of augmenting enhancing stream flows, this information will also help everyone and anyone to target places for recharge and infiltration, because we'll know basically where the base flow is lacking. That tells us that the alluvium is also malnourished, if you will, and where we can do projects that will enhance the alluvium and support base flow, support any other land use that happens to be receiving water from that alluvium. And we're also using this information to identify places and land uses where we can reduce consumption. So it's basically a three-pronged approach. Locations for stream flow enhancement can come out of this, places for increased recharge and infiltration, and places where we can work with private and public landowners to reduce consumption. And so we think it fits within everything that you all in this room are already doing, but we hope it will provide a set of data that will be useful, hopefully, for the next 20 years or so, as we do our planning in terms of building, ag, etc. So I'm happy to entertain questions. Yes, sir.
Did you also monitor species population over time?
This particular project did not. In terms of steelhead, is that the species? Yeah, well, that's the one we're most interested in. And we've been working for over a decade to attract the funding and personnel to be able to make that happen. And it's just beginning to happen in Santa Rosa Creek and in San Luis Obispo Creek. And it's called the Coastal Monitoring Program. It's run by the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And we partner with them and other agencies like the City of Slough to put this work on the landscape. And so it's in its infancy. It's just really getting started now. But one of the really exciting projects that happened because of the relationships and partnerships that evolved by being here is a project on the Murray Weir, working with the San Miguel Mutual Water Company, to actually put a counting station for steelhead as a part of a design to modify the Murray Weir to allow more fish to go up, but also to count them while they're going up. And water agencies, water companies are interested in working on that.
Where is that?
Murray Weir's on, you see it on Bob Jones Trail. It's that big sheet pile that goes
Yes,
across
yeah.
the entire creek. Sarah?
Is there any chance that you guys at these different monitoring locations, you took photos and have like ideas of like vegetation and even vegetation maintenance suggestions?
Yeah, it's not so much oriented toward that. But let me also say that the 3 years of funding is over, but we're looking for ways to keep it going.
Okay.
It's already established. And so we've been talking with many of you. It won't take much to keep it going. And we've been talking with many of you to see how we might be able to cobble a little bit of funding together on an annual basis, either through the zones or through municipal entities that might be interested in getting that information. Maybe, widening the scope a little bit, because we do have the capacity to collect, vegetation and other kinds of information as we go. If it has a flood control implication particularly, that's an important thing. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, speaking of the scope, if it isn't already here, it could be widened to water temperature. And of course, that's partly, it's a fact, flow is one factor, vegetation is another factor, overall climate, just climate change, the degree of heat out in the air is another factor. But I think the temperature itself is very critical for many of the creatures that live in the water. So that could be one of the things monitored that would be very helpful.
Yeah, and the regional board does do some of that in their ambient monitoring program. They have a very long rotation, so they're not doing it as often as we were doing in Slow County within the region team. But yeah, that's definitely important.
Are you concerned about the changes in the Clean Water Act and definitely through water?
I'll talk to you later about that one.
How can we kind of stay up to date or keep track of your progress on the study? Is there a man list or?
Not at this point. We're still figuring out what kind of platform it needs to live on going forward. We talked a little bit with Ray about that, and so stay tuned on that. We will be producing, a real regular report for our funder, and that'll be available to everybody as well.
And you let the group know when that's available?
Yeah, it'll be
Definitely
available
see it.
probably this fall, so after the summer break for us, it'll probably come in the fall. Thank you.
Maybe we could schedule a full update from you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Agendize that in the fall.
Sometime in the fall.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else from the at-large group, member or alternate, who wants to share anything? All right, thanks everyone. So, next meeting, should we circle back to supervisor districts or go to the other? Preference, Ray?
Yes, for the supervisor districts.
Circle back to that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just basically going in order of the attendance sheets, but we skipped district because we knew we were gonna have some absences, so we'll go back to the, next month will be the supervisor district, so we'll give them a heads up to get their updates. Thanks, everyone. Good, love hearing that. Okay, and then the final discussion item, item 9, is just discuss future agenda items. Anything, we identified a couple, we still have some lingering ones from previous meetings, but does anybody have anything they want to add or move up in rank? David?
I was talking to Ray just before the meeting about the supervisors dealing with fractured aquifers, and it seems the county is still not quite sure what it's doing in regard to that. But it would seem that as soon as that becomes right, that whatever the county whatever it reacts to do, should come before for us. I think that came up earlier in the meeting, but it's not an agenda item. So.
Yeah, good point. Thank you. Yeah, we did talk about that vaguely, and that makes sense. Yeah, Tim.
I wondered, did we ever get a presentation on this stormwater resource plan? And I'm wondering if that would be valuable. I see here that part of the project includes modeling of the Santa Maria groundwater basin, which would be interesting to hear about, or possibly the projects that they're taking on. It does talk about detailed analysis of watershed conditions and stuff like that. Just wondering if did we ever do that?
We didn't.
We didn't. We did not.
I didn't do the presentation.
Can you sometime?
Sure, I could do it on the next.
On the next one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Yeah, let's plan on that next time since it's in and ready. Great. Okay, any other comments or questions? Any public comment for items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, getting us out of here a little bit early. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.